Okay, quick recap. What we've done thus far, just so you know how I've got to this point. I've applied a foundation, my very first foundation, to a clean-shaven face. I've applied my first foundation coat of my stick by LA Colors. I'm using the beige. I've also highlighted my forehead, under my eyes, and along my jawbone with clown white that I got out of a Halloween costume kit. Now, of course, you can get clown white at any costume shop that sells clown white. Normally, I go for a much lighter, almost white foundation. And then I apply a small amount of translucent face powder over that. And that's how I normally do my highlights. But tonight I'm going for a cheap alternative because translucent face powder can be quite expensive. I'm also applying blushing pink by LA Colors, to certain parts of my face. I'm using a flat brush because it offers me more control. I'm applying it here, under my eye, under the location where I actually applied my clown white. This is contouring my cheekbones. I'm also going up and into my hairline and across on my forehead on the outer reach of where I applied the clown white. And this is also contouring my face to give it a more feminine appearance. I do that on each side. This is why I use a flat brush instead of a blush brush, which normally comes with blush. Now this blushing pink that I'm actually using here tonight, I actually got that at the Dollar General store. And it cost me all of $1.50, or like, it was cheap. It was like $1 or $1.50. I used a cheap foundation. Now, were I doing this for a more professional day, were I to actually have a booking at a club that was going to pay me a large sum of money for this, I would be using more expensive uh, colors. But because tonight is a night where I'm going to actually just be going to a club for fun and not actually because they're paying me to be there, I'm going with a cheaper alternative. Mostly because, number one, I don't want to use my expensive makeup if I don't actually have to. And number two, also because, well, I'm trying to provide you a cheap alternative for those who are just starting out and don't really have a lot of money for this. You always want to go back with the brush you started with that you applied your loose powder. And the loose powder I used is Natural by LA Colors. You always want to go back in to blend. Remember, I told you it's important to blend. Always blend your colors together. And what I'm doing is I'm taking a brush that's normally used for applying blush, I'm flattening it out, and I'm dipping it into a dark color, a very dark, loose powder. This dark, loose powder is called Dark, and as with most of it, it's from LA Colors. I'm also tapping it with my finger over the powder container to get most of the powder off the brush before I go in here and do this. I'm flattening it out, and I'm going along under my cheekbone just to add a darkening effect to the blush. I'm coming up, and I'm actually going on my forehead here just to darken that out. I'm repeating the process on the other side. Now you see how that darkened. Now you'll have to compare both sides, because one side may appear darker than the other, in which case you simply go in there and repeat the process again until both sides are equally dark. Now again, after darkening, you're going to want to go in there with your clown white just to renew your highlight. And as I said, it does not take large amounts of this stuff. This stuff does a little bit, does go a long way. And again, I'm using my fingers. I made the initial application with an applicator sponge just to get the baseline. But an applicator sponge will not allow you to blend like you want to, as well as your fingers. You don't have as much dexterity with a sponge as you do with your fingers. Down the bridge of the nose, along the jawline, here, like so. Now you'll notice the contour has changed the appearance of my cheekbones. They appear to be higher than they were originally. Now I also have a unique set of contour brushes called Daily Mirror. I got these actually at a Food City for like $5. They have all the brushes you could want. I have a larger fan brush, which I go in to kind of just darken up a little bit here. Now the reason I haven't applied any makeup to these brushes is because it's not been all that long ago since I've used them, and the brushes still do contain a bit of makeup in them. Yes, your brushes will contain makeup unless you clean them regularly. They will contain your makeup. So that's why it's very important that if you use these brushes for anything else other than what we're doing right now, that you clean them, because you'll get makeup cross-contamination and the makeup will actually cross over into another makeup and it will look different. Now, as you can see, I've contoured my cheeks. My face looks a bit different than what you used to. Now, you'll notice my eyebrows. They've been shaved down to a point. That's because what I'm actually doing now is I'm actually going to be changing the shape from a less feminine look to a more feminine look. Male eyebrows are not feminine looking. That's why it's highly important that you change the shape of your eyebrows when you do drag. The reason that I have cut them down is because I'm going to be taking an eyebrow pencil. This was an LA Colors eyebrow pencil, brown in color. I'm actually going to go in here. I'm going to follow the pattern of my own eyebrow. out to this point. I'm darkening my own eyebrow. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to increase the arch of my eyebrow. A regular male's arch is not very high in general. It's actually quite low. But what I'm doing here is I'm actually going to raise the arch of my eyebrow with my eyebrow pencil. I do that by kind of going out of the normal area and raising, going up into my forehead. Another thing, a male's eyebrow is somewhat thick. Females are not. Females' eyebrows are relatively thin. So I'm going to use the thinness of my eyebrow pencil. I'm actually going to leave them at that thickness. You'll notice thin eyebrows. I did go out a bit far with those because whenever I'm completed with my makeup, that length is going to be needed. Now what I'm actually doing here, now I've got my highlight and my eyebrows. So now what I'm doing is I'm actually going to be, I've also contoured, let's see. I'm actually going to be applying my eyeshadow now. I'm using Clinique eyeshadow. This was about $15 at my local mall. If you don't have access to Clinique products, LA Colors makes a color palette. This color palette is actually the Darling color palette, but I'm going to be using my Clinique simply because I prefer my Clinique over most everything else. I'm going to be using a purple, almost lavender in appearance, for my eyelid. And I'm going to draw that out to the edge of my eyebrow, my newly established eyebrow. I'm going to do this for each eye.